Imagine a religion that values every life so deeply that its followers avoid eating root vegetables to prevent harm to tiny organisms in the soil. A belief system where the pursuit of nonviolence, truth, and self-control form the core. Its followers may be few in numbers, but their influence resonates globally, noted for their commitment to peace and respect. This is Jainism, one of the oldest and most unique religions in the world. Much like Buddhism and Hinduism, Jainism originated in India, somewhere between the 7th and 5th centuries BC. It was at this time that great spiritual leaders, often referred to as Fordmakers or Tirthankars, formed the fundamental principles of Jainism. Even though Jains believe in repeated cycles and eras, they don't credit this to a god or divine creator. Instead, they revere their Fordmakers, mortals who had attained enlightenment or moksha, delivering them from the perpetual cycle of life and death. But why are they called Fordmakers? Because they're enlightened beings who bridge the river of eternal life and death to create a path for the rest of their disciples. They show the way to enlightenment. A Fordmaker is born every cycle of the world. According to Jainism, the most recent was Mahavira, who lived during the 6th century BC and stands in for the current cycle. So, with 24 Tirthankars recorded already and a single cycle spanning over 2,000 years, these cycles hint at an unfathomably long spiritual history. To the Jains, the universe is infinite, eternal, and self-fulfilling. It's always existed in its current form and wasn't created by a god or divine being. Jains believe the universe operates on fundamental laws that don't require supervision from a greater being. It is a self-regulating system, continuously passing through cycles of progression and regression. Jains believe that karma is a physical substance that clings to the soul and affects its purity. Actions, thoughts, and words can generate karma, and this karmic matter is believed to bind itself to the soul, affecting its ability to reach liberation. Bad karma, accrued through harmful actions or intentions, weighs down the soul, keeping it trapped in the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Therefore, living a life of virtue and mindfulness is seen as essential in Jainism to minimize the accumulation of bad karma and help the soul towards liberation. And this is where Jain values really come in. Jains believe that following the 3 jewels of Jainism can help them achieve enlightenment and transcend suffering. These are right belief, right knowledge, and right conduct. Right conduct separates into 5 tenets, or as the Jain like to call them, the 5 great vows. These include non-violence, truth, non-stealing, chastity, and non-attachment. These can be regarded as simple rules that can help a Jain avoid accumulating as much bad karma as possible and help them to uphold the other 2 jewels, right beliefs and right knowledge. Of these, non-violence is of supreme importance and takes center stage in Jainism. So much so that it's included in the religion's primary symbol, declared in 1974 and agreed upon by all of the Jain sects. The symbol of Jainism features a hand symbolizing non-violence, with the text at the bottom translating to, "All life is bound together by mutual support and interdependence." And yes, that is a swastika there, but there's no need for alarm. The Jains aren't Nazis. They simply respect the original swastika. We've done a video on how Hitler appropriated the swastika, so check that out if you're interested in knowing how the ancient swastika became a Nazi symbol. For the Jains, the swastika represents the perpetual state of movement of life, which doesn't follow a linear path, but instead goes through a continuous loop of birth, death, and rebirth. But let's backtrack a bit. In Jainism, pacifism is the primary tenet, which is why Jains believe that preventing harm to any creatures, even microscopic ones, is very important. Most Jains are die-hard vegans or vegetarians, some going so far as to cover their mouths and noses to avoid breathing in tiny organisms and killing them. But veganism and face masks are just the tip of the iceberg. They are so determined to uphold non-violence that they go so far as to avoid root vegetables and fermented foods, believing it to harm the microorganisms in the soil and those that formed or perished during the fermenting process. Eating, or even the act of farming or harvesting food items such as potatoes, garlic, onions, vinegar, bread, beer, and wine is considered taboo and a magnet for bad karma. In regards to their second vow, truth or satya, Jains tend to emphasize personal responsibility. They believe that truth and accountability are just as important to propel one's soul toward enlightenment. Because of this, their society has a strong focus on meditation, fasting, and rituals intended for spiritual development. Jainism expounds that truth is multifaceted. There is no absolutes when it comes to the truth. This is the concept of Anekantavada, or the multiplicity of viewpoints. An excellent way to understand this concept is through the story of the blind men and the elephant. Each of the blind men touch a different part of the elephant and make an assumption as to what it is. They come up with different interpretations, with each thinking that their view is the absolute truth. But in reality, they're all correct and incorrect at the same time. This tale brings to light an important truth. Reality can be perceived differently based on one's perspective, and no single point of view can encapsulate the entire truth. Similarly, Jains believe that beings in this endless cycle of samsara can only realize a fraction of the truth of reality. As such, only someone who has achieved true enlightenment will see or comprehend the entire reality of our universe. So in a sense, Jainism humbles its followers and highlights the importance of maintaining tolerance, non-absolutism, and pacifism. They believe the truth is complicated and the path to realizing it requires unending commitment to the three pillars of Jainism. According to Jainism, religions and doctrines that claim to hold the absolute truth or exclusive secrets of the universe tend to foster intolerance and exclusivity, preventing them from exploring the truth. The principles of non-stealing and chastity are pretty much self-explanatory. However, the tenet of non-attachment has a more extreme connotation in Jainism. For the uninitiated, it may appear to border on religious fanaticism. Jains take the concept of non-attachment to the point where certain sects renounce owning or wearing even clothes. There is even a practice known as Santhara or Salakana, which involves fasting to death. Primarily undertaken by the elderly or those suffering from terminal illnesses, fasting to death is just as it sounds. An individual practicing Santhara renounces all desires and worldly attachments, including the need for sustenance. They then start meditating and gradually reduce their intake of food and water until starvation, illness, or old age overcomes them. Although perceived as suicide by non-followers, this practice is highly regarded in Jainism as a peaceful and voluntary process. It's viewed as the ability to embrace death with full knowledge and responsibility. Today, however, this practice has generated a lot of controversy and legal debate, since it brings into focus ethical considerations centering around the right to life and the right to die. Although nowhere near as popular as the major religions, Jainism is still surviving. More than 4.5 million people around the world identify as Jains. Jains make up just around 0.4% of India's population. In India, Jains are mostly concentrated around the west coast, in territories such as Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Rajasthan. They relate more to the Hindus and tend to be wealthier and more educated than the average Indian. According to the Pew Research Center, roughly a third of Jain adults have at least a college degree, compared with 9% of the general public, according to India's 2011 census. They are still strictly vegetarian and still manage to keep up with the old tradition of avoiding root vegetables and fermented foods. But more than these practices, what's interesting about Jainism is its alignment with modern values, such as environmentalism, tolerance, and ethical living. While it's true that the rigorous practices, dietary restrictions, and asceticism can be challenging in the modern environment, its core principles have significant relevance. There's a lot we can learn from Jainism. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to our channel. It helps the mysterious algorithm do its thing so we can continue to make more videos like this. Thanks for watching.